May as well get on to the messy stuff now. A mixing drill. Took at this as an Iben stock or something. Can't even make it out. Alfra, sorry. An Alfra mixing drill. This one sounds rough. See if she runs here. Always lift them up whenever you're plugging them on in case they're jammed on. Well, she runs. That's the main thing. Now we just have to sort the bearings. They're not totally gone, but they don't sound good anyway. Strip us down and change these bearings out. Hopefully that's all she needs. Now these mixing drills, you never get them in clean. This here is probably one of the cleaner states you're going to get them. Normally every single screw has to be dug out. Looks bad, but it's a working tool. Designed to earn money, not to look pretty. I'll give her a quick wee spit shine here and get under her. Doesn't take much to clean them actually. But it is a dusty job. Right, I'm going to take this bearing out. This is the main reason I'm just going to clean it down, because I don't want the dust and grit and dirt coming from here and getting into the gearbox. So to change this bearing, we're going to have to take it out, and all the actual bits of cement and plaster that's jammed on here is also up inside of here. And if I press it out with that there, it's going to expand the aluminium casing and break it. So we have to clean this out. We'll just get rid of the whisk here first. That's where the noise is coming from. Full of dirt, grit, water and rust. See all that there plaster. That's all stuck to the aluminium. And that aluminium will have corroded also and expanded. And if you leave it the way it is and press this bearing out, she just expands it that little bit, and you'll get a crack all the way up here. So if you're changing them, make sure you clean it out. Saves yourself a whole lot of grief later. That's the bearing bore cleaned out as well, as best as I can. Now to get onto it. Still more digging. More cleaning. At least the brushes are free enough. That's obviously gone too. Now, clean like that as well. To blow it with the compressor. Get as much of the dust out as possible. And this is the reason why we clean this head. Inside of here. There's a lot of grease. Try to save that seal also if you can. It's very stiff. This bearing's gone as well. Inside there's a lot of grease, quite a bit. This one is your jack shaft. Get that out. Then you have to get your selector. Screw in the middle. It's all gummed up too. The selector's on the shaft. That's your shaft that connects onto your switch, and it just lifts and lowers this pair of gears for selecting your 2 speeds. At the bottom of here there should be a C-clip. Get that out. Take that out. Just take it over to your vise. You can grip this area in your vise. Give it a good hard grip. And then use a rubber mallet to tap the aluminium housing. And that should knock it out. Now next up is getting the shaft out, which is going to involve taking the bearing out. This is the risky bit. What you need to do is pack this out so you can press it out on a bearing press while supporting this aluminium. So we need a big washer, just big enough to cover this aluminium, but just small enough for the bearing inside to push through. If the bearing's too tight, it's just going to get snagged on the bearing. If the bearing's too big, you're not going to support the housing. You need this aluminium housing here very well supported, If it's not, it's just going to break. This is actually a modified O-ring. This is actually for working on healthies, one for pressing out the armature on the TE76. It works on this as well. The setup on this is critical. Pin for pushing on your shaft, your exact size washer supporting the base. Hopefully we don't bust it. That's our shaft. So that's the shaft out. That's the gear. The bottom of the gear, there's your keyway, and there's also a little shim. Don't lose the wee shim. And that bearing there is okay, but we will also take that out. Luckily that's a lot easier to take out. We tappy tap. We still have to get this the rest of the way out. And we didn't bust our aluminium casing either, which is always a plus. Again, just going to use this washer to help get this bearing out. That's our culprit. And we still have a seal to read the number. She's a 6205. And this one is a 6004. So we'll clean that out, we'll clean them out. And also take this off, change these bearings, clean this head. Probably a 6000. Yep, 6000 bearing. Now this also has to be pressed out. The bearing on the other side has a C-clip up on here, so the armature has to be pressed off the bearing first. Get your C-clip. And you can knock out your bearing. And that one is and that is a 6001. You can see how bad that bearing got. Look. See the inside race? It's discoloured, it's actually darker. It's blued. It's got so hot, it's actually discoloured the metal. So that bearing was very, very bad. You can see where she's actually burnt the grease inside too. Got that one. This has been left done just in the nick of time. That should be us ready to go. all cleaned out, and these two bottom bearings are fine, so we'll leave them alone. First thing, get the armature back together. Don't forget these C-clips, whatever you do. Because that can back out on the bearing if you don't have them on. Make sure you have them installed. Get your oil seal. We have paper gaskets, so it is very easy to tear that. Try to keep it in one place, but if you don't, you can just use a bit of gasket seal. Now to get this back together, you're trying to press on two bearings at the same time, but you want to support both of them. Best thing to do, press this on first onto your shaft, and press this into the housing, then get a support for the inner race, press on that, and a support for the outer race on this one. Press the two together. That way you get both of them pressed on and you don't put any strain on the inside. It's always the outer or inner race you're actually pressing on. That's that. Next, get this on. A wee bit of heat. That's her on tight. Now we need support for this and for this. There we go. Next, your shim. That back in. And your keyway. Then you have to press on your gear. That's her. If that's not running smooth, you might have to get a hammer, either head it that way or head it that way, just in case you stuff. You may have to seat a wee bit more. Next up is the drive shaft for your actual gear selector. That's going under the bearing closest to your change slot. Again, just press them on. actual selector lever. Your gear on to your keyway, this big long keyway. Drop your selector foot in, twist it over to the gear, and drop it on. That's it. And it's your switch then that keeps it all together. Same for this one. Just press on your jack shaft. That's her. Now for grease. It's good heavy gear grease. Whichever brand you have. This is Bosch stuff, so it actually works out quite expensive. But get all the gears coated with an initial coating. To the needle bearings too, don't forget them. And that technically is all you need. It's just the one she's facing down and running. This grease is going to get thrown around and it's going to be thrown against the sides. If you put on something too light, she's just going to run out. It has to be heavy stuff like this here. Once she heats up and the machine's been running a while, that grease will become less viscous and starts working its way around. Generally, the grease inside is not going to move all that much. It's just if you only put in this amount, that's it. It's going to get thrown off to the sides and that's where it's going to stay. You need a bit of extra stuff to just pack out the whole housing. Right, that'll have to do it. Now your pin, just locate up to the housing. So you can't put this on wrong. And that's her. And pressing this on, two needle bearings here, because you put grease into them, will actually make it a wee bit tighter, so you have to squeeze quite a bit to get the pins back up through the needle bearing with the grease on it. It might make it a wee bit tighter, but that's all it is if it's not going on properly for you. Reassembly then, very simple. Factory fitted with the change lever toward the handle. Slide her on, and that's it. Should be able to turn it by hand. If you can't, there's a problem. Now the brushes for these are worn, but actually not even halfway worn on. They're not that big a brush to begin with. You can change them now, but there's really not much point. Plenty more life left in them yet. So we'll leave them be for now. Hopefully, that should be her. That's it. One Alfra Mixing drill up and running again with 4 new bearings. Top one fell apart, the motor ones were bad. That gets her running nice and smooth again. She's an Alfra, but to be honest, this is just a Refina mixing drill with Alpha written on. Alfra, Refina, Ibenstock, they're all the same machines. Very, very good machines is what they are. These here seem to be bulletproof. They take some amount of beating and they can do some amount of work. Very rarely do you ever get them on with a burnt out motor. Even when they need that kind of work, those parts replaced, they're well worth fixing up. Even with all that there, that amount of labour, them 4 bearings, still only costs about €90 for that repair. Well worth it at that. Switch, you can probably buy them online for about 50 or 60 quid. Lead doesn't take much to change. Well worth the money. Definitely well worth the money, these here machines, whether it's an Alfra, Ibenstock or a Refina. Well worth the money. Brilliant machines to buy. Right, next up is a Makita precision drill. It's a HP 2070. Full speed. Just doesn't sound exactly right. Sounds smooth enough, but it's as if it's down in powder or something. A wee bit deeper and have a look here. Brushes are okay. That's okay. Motor looks alright. Ah, here we go. It's the field that's cooked. See, she's all black around here. The plastic's actually melted. So that's the problem. I can't just knock this out. It also has the speed controller wired onto the field. Just be very careful not break any wires. Pull that out. back in again. Take that field out. Yeah, you can see which is actually burnt up there. Which is overheated. Heated them coils up. Too high resistance on them now, so they're not getting the same power. It won't run the motor correctly. So that'll be down on power when you're running full speed. You can see the windings are black. And the plastic lining on the field itself has actually started to melt. If that gets any worse, it'll melt onto the rotor and destroy the motor as well. See if you have another field now to swap it out with. Quick wee clean on one new field. You can see the difference there now. She was well cooked. This is going on to little spade connectors at the bottom. Just put this on gently so that you don't damage the connectors. Put that on. Screw it down. That connector in again, because the screws themselves actually grip the brush holder as well. They're pinned together on both sides basically. Pull up your speed controller again, grab that lead. Nice wee small fingers will be useful here. Connect that up. Push it in. Get your brushes back in again, which just can be a wee bit tricky. You have to have your switch out to do this. But they just push in. Make sure your brush holder is actually over to one side before you put your switch in. It needs the clearance to go on. It'll not go on if it's over in the halfway position. Get everything tucked in and all your wires in place. That's how your wiring should end up. Your black is going to cross here. Your pink is actually crossing over here. And the white and pink are crimped onto the switch. Blue's here. And your wee strip connectors there. A wee bit tricky getting them all back into place just. But when you know where they go, it isn't so difficult. Should be her. That's her. One Makita HP2070 that was running, but just didn't have the same power at full speed. So under a heavy load she was stalling, didn't have the same power. Problem was the field was cooked, needed to be replaced. That's her. Right, next up, Bosch driver. This is a GSR 12V20HX. You can see it's working there, but switch problem. It's not making contact all the time. Let's see if we can clean this out. Bosch, like the DeWalt and Milwaukee, going the same way. Switch is one solid piece. So all this controller, switch, contacts, all one. So when switch gives a bother, you're buying a new machine. Let's see if we can do anything with this one. These ones are not as easy to open. You've got two tabs here and here, and you have also four wee tabs on the four corners. Prise each of them up individually and then hold them up while you go through the rest. Plus this isn't like the DeWalt, it's not like a door you can just open up and clean out. There's this lead on the bottom as well, soldered on. So if you wanted to remove this, you have to unsolder that lead and get rid of all the solder. But we don't want to go to that kind of hassle. We just want to get inside. The only reason we want to get inside is for some contact cleaner. Give it a good wash out. Hopefully this should help it run a bit smoother. Let the excess cleaning solution dry off. It'll dry on its own, or otherwise you can just give it a light blow with a compressor line. Close it back up again. Hopefully that'll make a little bit of difference. Just like I say, you don't have to buy the motor separately in this, but this board and switch and contacts are all one piece. The motor's separate, so it is. You can unsolder that and put in a new one. But this switch, if you need to replace it, over €100 a time. For the price of this wee thing, you would just buy a new one. €100 a time to replace that switch isn't worth it. It's not a great design by Bosch, especially seeing as the board is not even coated or nothing. It's a nice tidy board, but no protection. This is for no outside use. Water gets on that at all, you're going to be in trouble. Don't forget this wee locking pin, so it actually holds the back half together. Just push that in there. That Keeps it solid. Nice one, it's a lot better. That's her. One Bosch GSR 12V20 HX mini driver. Up and running again. Just a wee bit of contact cleaner on the switch. We'll keep us boy happy anyway. Next up, a Makita multi-tool. This is the DTM51. This is the second biggest cordless 18 volt multi-tool Makita do. Instead of having a DC motor, they have an actual universal motor. Ooh. Something not right there. I don't think it's a motor problem. I think something's actually rubbing inside of here. Funnily enough, don't get too many of these ones on. This one's not old, mind you. This is nearly new. I'll take out the brushes actually. So normally the DTM50, boys using it with drywall and destroy the DC motor on them. I'm not even sure if I've actually opened one of these before or not. Nice wee brush set up there actually. It's handy. That's what's rubbing. The fan. And there's the problem. A nail. And there's our culprit. One 18 gauge brad nail. Cordless tool, universal motor, permanent magnet inside. So this is magnetized inside. You throw it into a tool bag, lads, same as any cordless tool. A big bunch of loose pins or bits of metal are going to get attracted to the magnet. This thing with the big vents on the side can easily suck one in. It wouldn't kill Makita to put a wee gauze or a wee guard on them vents. They are big. Good for keeping it cool, but you get a bloody screw nail in through that there. Really, they should have a wee bit of gauze, metal mesh, just covering them a wee bit, just to stop debris from getting in. Because it is a magnet, it is going to attract bits of metal. No other damage done, apart from that. Just where it's been rubbing, heating the metal and melting onto the fan. Just where the fan's been rubbing on that nail, heating it up, and it eventually melted into this air deflector. Don't think it's worth replacing. A little tidy up will do the job. Underside should be okay. Simple as. Quick wee rebuild and we're back in business. Motor's not burnt out at all. Simple fix. And as well, this particular model is actually quite a nice wee model to work on. The cheaper DMT50, the DC motor one, it's actually more complicated than this. You're doing this one though. Speed wheel, don't forget. Big long spring goes on there. And there's a pin then for your detent for your speed wheel. That sits on top. Your wheel then you have these wee detents. That's what this wee pin is actually pushing against. Push that down. That's all there is to it. I was wondering, he came back with this thing saying it's already burnt out. He's only had it a few months. I'm not even sure if I've ever had one of these on for repair before. These are actually the ones to buy. The DMT51. The DMT50 is also quite good. Good enough size. It's a lot lighter than this. Alright power. But only a DC motor on them. They're not going to do anything wild heavy. And if you're using them for like a drywall, they're terrible for that. The dust gets into the motor, destroys the bushings, wears it out, causes all kinds of trouble. If you are using them, make sure you give them a blowout. These ones here, the universal motor, bit bigger, bit more powerful, wee bit more robust. Plus you have the quick change lever as well on top, and the speed control. They're a nicer machine to use. They seem to withstand the abuse a wee bit better. But that is a downside. This big vent here, good for cooling, not good for debris getting inside. The bigger one again, the big brushless version, terrible machine. Good machine for using, plenty of power in it, but the actual lock mechanism is prone to failure at the top, which requires you replacing the whole head. Not very good in my eyes. That's the one there I would actually recommend if you're looking for a cordless multi-tool. A lot of Makita stuff, anything that oscillates or vibrates a lot, they put on these bases, which are mounted on wee rubber bushings. A lot of people think this is a problem. Buy the tool and they come back and the base is wobbling all over the place. It's not a failure, it's a feature. This thing's vibrating, this thing's vibrating, moving around, getting banged about, cause them heavy vibrations. Your battery, if it was fixed solid onto this tool, would simply vibrate this and burn out the contacts, arc across and eat away the metal. Putting this base on separately so the battery's floating takes away all the play. If this is sitting loose, then your battery's also sitting loose. Doesn't cause the contacts to vibrate as well. They sit locked into the battery solid, so the actual contacts don't burn away. Never see these burning out in the Makitas. These universal blades as well, not great on these here multi-tools, because you're only getting 3/4 of the teeth engaged. You're taking more of a strain, so you're more inclined to nip off these actual pins. If you break off too many, you lose the position of where you can put this. Better off with the full round heads if you want the tool to last longer. But yeah, they are more expensive. These are cheaper to buy. Does that cure the problem? Look at that. Motor's fine. Head's vibrating, motor's running, no smell. One Makita multi-tool, DTM51, fixed up simply by removing a nail from the motor. Next up we have a senco gun. There's the old gas gun. Power on, and she works. Let's test it. Right, she's working and she's firing. So it looks like this is going to be a how to service a senco nail gun video. So this is actually the SGT90i gas framing nailer. Looks like this one's just in for a service. Strap her down, clean it out, get her back together again. Not actually that dirty. It's obviously not that dirty. But maybe this boy just wants to get on ahead of time and get it serviced sooner rather than later. Not much more I can do. The gun actually works, it's firing. And it hasn't told me anything else wrong with it. No phone number. Service it is. Unscrew that, push it back in, pulls out that pin, then you can pull that out. Just take your washer along with it. Now that still won't pull off. You have to take off this socket head as well. Then you can take it apart. Head in this isn't actually that bad. A wee bit dusty, but nothing wrong with it. If you ever bust a spring in these, actual magazine spring, all you're doing is taking off this wee bolt here. That allows the actual magazine traveller to come out. You can unhook the spring, drop in a new one. All the work's up in here. These things are on tight, especially these two boys down on here, one either side. Keep a firm grip. This plate never wants to come off. Rotate it 90 degrees and slide straight out. She's dirty, but I wouldn't say this has done very much work at all. Now if you can't get the pin out, you can knock it down so far and it won't actually come out the whole way. The steel rings on the pin will bound it up and caught on the very end. You can't prise it out because you'll damage the aluminium. You have to push in the steel rings whilst pushing down in the pin. But the pin is down here. You can't get anything else down onto the middle of it to put pressure on it. Get yourself an Allen key. Push it on there, put a bit of tension on that. And whilst doing that, push in the steel rings, work your way around, and that should pop out the pin. They can be a torture at times. The actual seals themselves are massive. A much bigger seal than the pass load. A bigger spring. So whenever they get up to here, they drop onto the slip and snag. You have to do a lot of wiggling and jiggling to get that out. That's her. Dismantled. How to clean it. Parts washer itself could use a bit of a clean here. Same as always, I'm just using kerosene in this parts washer. Does a great job cleaning stuff like this here. Plus it's cheap and readily available. Probably a lot less harmful compared to some of the other solvents you do get. Exact same as a pass load, you get into every single wee nook and cranny to get all the dirt and all the oil out. Unlike the new IM360 pass load with the full round head nail, it's not as hard to clean. And a wee bit two minds about senco. Here in Ireland, parts are not easy to get. They were impossible to get for a stage. We actually had a rep around yesterday with a supplier. And that's all going to be changing. They're going to be able to supply more parts here now in Ireland. Whether that's true and whether it comes to fruition, I don't know. But I know these gas guns, roofers and that do actually like them. They're a well priced gun. They're a nice gun to use. Like anything they do need a service and things do go wrong, in comparison to a pass load, they're actually coming out on top. Pass loads are good, but motors aren't lasting as long as they used to. These sencos just seem to do a lot more work before they eventually are retired. I'm still on two minds about them of how good they are. But like any tool, it's not just to do with how good it is, it's also to do with how long it lasts and how much it costs. Who's actually going to be using it? Because this is cheaper, boys that don't use a gun as much is going to be buying it, and they actually seem to like it. And boys that actually use guns all the time also seem to like it. So this fellow that owns this one is actually a riffer and uses them all the time, and he prefers these sencos or raw guns now. Like a lot of things, price is a major factor. buying the pass loads, and the pass loads are doing the work, but they're also laying down a wee bit more. What you don't want to be having with the more expensive gun. And this is where Senco seems to be coming into its own. Plus they also supply the nails and the gas. It's a one-stop shop. Pass load is renowned for being way overpriced for its nails and gas. So it ends up as a saving on the gun, the tool itself, and a saving on the fixtures and the gas. As for the newer cordless gun, the battery with recirculated air, I don't know yet. Haven't actually dismantled one before. Just looking at the breakdown, you can get the parts, but like anything, the question is how readily available are the parts, how long is the gun going to last, how powerful is it going to be. So I don't know on that yet. Time will tell, I suppose. But they are able to be regassed, the new gasless guns. Just takes a special fitting, just like the cookie. It'll be interesting to see how they fare out. But I would say once you break a pin, you'll just be dumping them. So a pin looks to be about 180 quid to buy. I can't see the gun being all that expensive to buy. But we'll see. For now, gas is still quite popular, and Senco seem to be able to deliver. That's her, cleaned out, blown off, dried out, ready to be oiled up now, put back together again. Now the only other thing you need to be looking at if you're servicing a gun like this, a gas gun, whether it's a Senco or a pass load or a Hitachi, one, the O-rings, O-ring up in the head or the chamber is either broken, pinched, or has a flat edge, you replace it. These ones here are fine, no flat edge. It's mainly this one you would find getting a flat edge or being pinched, not so much this one. The Senco one actually is a flat O-ring, it's more of an X-ring, you very rarely need to change that. The other thing, your little red stem adapter. If that's loose and just flopping about, the gas is going to escape and it's not going to get the right gas into the chamber. If that's loose, replace it. Boys going to look for parts to service these guns all the time, and one of the first things they ask for is a spark plug. This black boy here with a wee sharp tip on it, that's your actual spark plug, this piece here. You would never need to change this ordinarily. Not unless the thing's 20 years old and you've went through 3 motors and it's still running. Maybe then you would need to change it. You'd only change that as if the very tip was no longer pointy. If that rounds over, you would replace it then. Never do you ever really need to change that there. Unless it's either been damaged or, like I say, it's 20 odd years old. They give next to no trouble. The only thing you would need to do, so if the gun's in a very bad way, just take a flat file and just make sure the underside of this aluminium housing right here, so it comes up on the tip, make sure the underside of that is clean. Make sure there's no dirt or debris clogging it. If it was dirty and the electrical arc doesn't go to here, it's going to discharge to the side. There's a bit of dirt insulating it, it's going to go to the wrong location and give you the wrong spark, which will cause misfires. Just make sure that's clean. Apart from that, the only other major thing you would check is the reed valve. Generally you don't open this unless you have to, because these bolts are Loctited in to an aluminium housing. Every time you open them, you're going to wear out the housing. Every time you open them, it's going to be lower likely that these bolts are going to come loose, so leave it alone unless you need to open it. The only time you need to open it is whenever you're shooting the gun, everything's working and it's firing, but it's not putting out any nails. As when you plunge the gun and it shoots, it doesn't shoot a nail. The nails aren't been loaded up, and the pin has not been fully retracted. It's not going to let the next nail up. That's generally caused by the reed strip. It's a one-way check valve inside for blowing out the exhaust gas. If it doesn't reseat itself properly, the pan doesn't get sucked all the way to the very back. It'll go back a little bit, not far enough. Apart from that, there's not much more to do. Just replace the parts as you need to. If they're worn out, replace them, or if they're broken, replace them. The general service is just to clean down, re-oil everything, and get it all back together. Give everything a wee coat of oil here first to get it ready, and then we'll start reassembling. Plenty on that pan, and make sure the open ends of the steel rings are at opposite sides. Once they're ready to go, now your pan, same as the pass load, has a straight and a chamfered side. The chamfer goes towards the nails. The chamfer's up this way. Get it into the right position, and then press on your steel rings whilst pushing down on the pan. And just like taking it out, these can be a torture because of the size of them. It'll pop right on. And them seals may be annoying to get on, but them steel rings do seal the gun up very well. Make sure you put your pan back as well, so it does shoot the first nail. It needs to be sitting all the way back. Make sure your two rubbers are still in place, or put them back in if you remove them. And your legs of your spring, these are sighted, so you can't put them on wrong. It sits under this track here and touches the probe up here, this probe arm. Spring then for a bit of tension. That's the way they sit. Then your reed valve assembly up here sits into this hollow. A little wiggle and a jiggle to get it to drop on. Don't force it because this O-ring has to seat. It should drop on nice and easy. Push on the O-ring a little bit along the edge to help it drop on. Steel pins actually lock into this bar to hold it all together. That's it. Plastic cover over the top. Steel ring again. Put it on wrong. and then twist it. Little short socket head for the front. Plastic cover on top. There's these two shouldered washers then. Actually go into that. And two medium-sized socket heads go into there. Wouldn't advise Loctite for them bolts either. You'll have a hard time getting it off the next time. It's actually quite a simple gun to work on as well. Drop that on. Drop on your holding bolt. That's actually square on the end. It actually goes onto the housing here. Don't force it. Drop it on so far, then just twist it. We'll drop the rest of the way on. Socket head with a washer goes onto there. Your big socket head, fat one, and the fat washer goes on here. Motor assembly just drops on top. Just make sure you haven't pinched the o-ring. Make sure it hasn't snagged on any of these teeth here, these guides for the o-ring. So they narrow in and taper going down so the o-ring seats right against back here. If you're putting it on, you can sometimes hook it onto one of them. So the first time you go to plunge, doesn't go down fully, keeps getting caught, check that o-ring in there. Your spark plug lead and your motor lead. Just like the pass load, check this black wire. There's a wee static discharge lead. Make sure that hasn't broken or been disconnected. If it's broken down here, get it resoldered, otherwise that could cook your actual spark unit down in here. But this rarely breaks off. It's actually better attached than the pass load one. Lastly, your filter and your cover. That's her on Senco SGT 90i, fully serviced, ready to go. Three green lights, we're all a go. One thing people also don't realise about these guns, these three green lights, that is not a battery indicator, that is a state of health of the gun. So once you start it, green light comes on to say the motor is running. So these green lights here are actually to tell you what's happening with the gun, or more for service agents. This will be actually a fault code as well. Once they give red lights, that'll give you an indication of what's going wrong, the motor, spark unit, whatever. People often get it confused with a battery indicator. Because once you put it on, you get three green lights. So you assume the battery's fully charged. If this was flat, ready to die, you would still get three green lights. Half charged, still three green lights. But then that problem gets doubled because the charger also has not great a design. It has two lights, red and green. Put the thing in, turns red. It goes green when it has a boost charge done. And then it's been charged in about 15 minutes and it's ready to use. You'll get about half an hour, an hour's worth of work out of it. It's not fully charged. It takes about an hour to fully charge the battery. And it gives you no indication of when it is fully charged. It just has to be in for a certain length of time. So people assume once the charger goes green, this is fully charged. Put it onto the gun, 3 green lights. Assume the battery is fully charged, only does about half an hour's work. That's because the battery wasn't charged up properly to begin with. So don't be getting caught out with that. This isn't an indicator, it's just a state of health display. Now the tester. That's her, fully serviced, firing and ready to go. Bit of excess oil just gets thrown out the front after the first few nails are shot. That's her, on senco, fully serviced. Now, Makita nut gun. This is the DTW1001, exact same as the 1002, just with a different anvil. This is a 3/4 drive, the 002 is a 1/2 inch drive. Anvil's actually jammed. This might be a simple wee fix. Generally, if the motor's good, at least trying to run, these things are well worth fixing. It's only when the motor dies that you're into problems. If you need to replace the control module or the stator, they're one piece and they're basically the price of the gun. Outside of that, well worth fixing. Some of the other Makita tools, the heavier stuff, this actual battery retainer flaps about and wee rubber bushings, so the retainer actually moves with the battery to save the battery wearing out. Makita ones have loads of protection for the battery so they don't burn out the terminals or burn out the batteries. Little rubber bumps, little rubber rollers, actual steel wear plates so it doesn't wear out the plastic housing, and then this whole system here. A lot of effort goes onto the battery protection on the Makitas. Can't fix that wobble, actually replacing these wee rubber dampers. That will take the wobble out of it, or the play at least. There's always one. Something not right there. Bearings are good. Sticking over here, is it? There's the problem. Strut gears. 1, 2, 3 of them. Everything else should be alright. That rattles just this wee rubber sleeve at the top. I'll have to clean that out. Clean this out. and teeth are going to be everywhere. And the only thing is, make sure they didn't destroy any other teeth, this planetary one, and make sure they're not jammed inside. Sometimes they can wedge themselves in and micro weld them in between the other teeth. So we'll clean that out. Hopefully that gear will be okay. I'll replace these gears. And the question is, did it damage the armature? There's a few wee chips out of her, but none of the actual teeth are missing. So it might be worth keeping that. We'll not know until we run it and see what she sounds like. If she sounds very bad, we might replace the rotor. But if she sounds okay, we'll keep it. Get rid of these gears. Very simple. Washer on top. And there's just 3 pins. They just drop out. Now, clean all this down and get some new parts. Now, this big gear, after cleaning it out, there is actually wee bits of damage on it. So we'll also just change that. There's no point in replacing the small ones and then this here destroying them again. Get rid of that. Housing is okay, no damage to that. So, 3 planetary gears, 1 ring gear, and new rubber cushions as well. Planetary gear first. It just drops on and locates under the housing. Crack is getting the spring clip back in again. It's not like you can use a set of circlip pliers. You just have to prise it on. And that's it. Now, grease, don't overdo it. Bit on the base and the bit on that steel bush. And drop the steel washer down on top. Don't overdo the grease. The more you put on, the more that's just going to leak out back through the motor. Just put on enough and no more. One of the things I like with these Makita ones, the grease can work its way up into here, and there's a wee hole on the side then. The grease can actually come out and re-grease the bush as it's running. Less tendency for the Makita one to bind up. The actual hammer itself on this doesn't actually touch the side of the walls, so you don't need to worry about greasing this here. Grease will just work its way onto it anyway. But do get down on here. There's 2 steel balls that actually allow this hammer to rotate and move up and down. Keep that lubricated. Down on the bottom of here as well, under this big heavy spring, there's actually steel balls acting as a bearing. You want to get some down in there as well. gears then. A little bit of grease onto the center first. Slide them in and pop the pin in. Very simple setup, but very effective. Then this washer sits on top, just to hold the pins. Just a little bit of grease then on the gears themselves, and you're good to go. A little on the ring gear, and that's enough. That's it. Clean off the excess grease, and that's it. It is possible to put that in wrong. Take off that extra grease because that's a little bit too much. Put in your armature, press it on, give it a spin, make sure it's running true. If it's got a wobble on it, it's not located into them gears correctly. That one's okay now. Rid of them. We're all ready to go. I like about these above the rest, that switch, if that gives bother, needs to be replaced. Pop up the two spade connectors and your wee retainer, and your wee retainer for your wiring limb. Just replace it. Plus your battery contacts, if you did ever burn them out, you can just replace them. But the stator and the controller is one piece, and if you ever needed to replace the controller, same as any brushless machine, it'll be the same price as the tool itself. It's never worth it once it gets to that stage, but it is possible to burn out the field without destroying the controller. But if you do that, you still have to replace the two together. But that doesn't happen too often, mind you. You should be able to turn this motor by hand just by turning the anvil on the end of it. If you can't do that, there's a problem. Now, seeing as these are very slack, I'll just replace these as well. They're not expensive, they're only like €2 each. One in there. One in there. Pin into there, then your roller, and your top half. Let's tighten that up as well. That's her. Up and running. Nice one. 2016 Makita DMT5101. Up and running again. That's just 3 wee gears, a ring gear, and 2 rubber cushions. Nice one. So, is it worth this kind of work? Them 4 gears, a little bit of grease, 2 cushions, labour, VAT, all included, €60. Well worth it at that. Anyway folks, as always, thank yous for watching. Hope you're enjoying the videos. Hopefully they're helping somebody somewhere with their tools. And as always, give us a wee like and a follow if you're enjoying the videos. And also for any of my members or patron members, I'll hopefully get a few more videos now coming up close to Christmas. Cheers.